What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
I am Iron Man.
You are a toy!
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
Server Anakin! I have the high ground!
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
I'm simply saying that life finds a way.
Welcome back to the Big Movie Boys podcast, the only podcast you need to listen to at least 8 times before it starts to make sense. I'm your host, Jeremy Ballman, and with me as always is Bob, coming to theaters, Liebel.
How's everybody doing today?
And Ben subscribes to CBS All Access, Stitch.
How's it going out there?
We've got a lot to talk about this week, including big entertainers switching exclusively to different platforms, the new Tenet trailer, and we will be reviewing the original Nolan mindfuck, Inception. But first, a little bit of housekeeping.
Yes, the Big Movie Boys podcast is now officially available on Apple Podcasts. Also, if you don't follow us on social media, be sure to follow the Big Movie Boys on Twitter and Instagram. There's a few little bits of bonus content coming out starting this week. Also, there may or may not be a bonus YouTube video posted to our YouTube channel, so be sure to follow that as well so you don't miss out on any of the awesome action.
Also, yeah, if you're enjoying the podcast, it really helps if you rate, review, subscribe, whatever you can do on the platform you listen on. Another big help would be to recommend it to someone you think would like it as well. Remember, you can find all of our links at bigmovieboys.com, boys with an I, of course, or in the description of the episode wherever you're listening to it.
So with all that being said, let's get into our first news topic. It's actually 2 different stories that kind of fall into the same category. We'll start first with Joe Rogan moving his show exclusively to Spotify. If you don't think it's a big deal, it is if you listen to podcasts, since it's estimated that Joe Rogan gets 190 million monthly downloads on his show, and it's reported that this deal is worth $100 million. So some of the actual details: the show will start to appear on Spotify in September before exclusively moving there at the beginning of 2021. That includes video podcasts as well, so he'll no longer have his YouTube channel. I don't know if you guys listen to his podcast very much, but this is pretty big.
The YouTube channel, because that's where I listen to it, because, I don't know, it's not on Spotify. I strictly use Spotify. So, I would watch like clips of it on YouTube, and I loved that. And now that it's going to be on Spotify, I'm sure I'll be listening to it a lot more, but I'm a little bummed the YouTube clips are going to be gone, because that was one of the best parts about it.
I should clarify, the Clips channel will still be there. His main podcast channel with the full-length video podcast will not be there anymore.
I wonder if he'll still do that, though. Like, will Spotify have, like, do they do videos?
So that was something I was going to look into and didn't. I'm not aware of them currently doing videos, and I'm wondering if that's something that they're working on and why it won't be a thing until September or the end of the year.
And they're going to launch it with Joe Rogan. That would make sense. That'd be the perfect thing to launch
because
it with.
I feel like most people like to watch it, at least, right?
I watch the clips, like, all the time. Like, I'll watch just, like, it'll be a 3 or 4 minute clip, and I'll watch, like, 5 or 6 of them, and I basically watch the entire interview or whoever he has on.
Yeah, I'm like 50-50. Lately, since we've all been home, I've been watching a lot more of the full videos. But if I'm at work listening to them, then I just listen on Apple Podcasts or whatever. And if it's a guest that I don't want to listen to the whole thing, then, like Bob, I'll watch a lot of the clips.
Do you find it weird how many people listen to him? Like, I think about, like, what is his niche? Like, what is
base?
Who is his target audience? Everybody? Like, everybody listens to him. It's so strange.
Is the $100 million, like... So will he not be getting paid per episode, or is that just to move it over and then he's getting paid per episode?
So my understanding is that this is a $100 million deal that's going to be paid over several years to move his show exclusively to Spotify. It's just the exclusive distribution rights. He still produces it the same way he does. It's independently owned. He owns it.
He's still in his basement?
In his studio, but I think it's a pretty nice studio. I don't know that you'd call it a basement. But I think he's still running his own ads and everything. Like, everything is still running as normal. But instead of him now being able to distribute it wherever he wants, which traditionally has been Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and I don't know if it's anywhere else. It hasn't been Spotify in the past. Now it's exclusively on Spotify, minus the clips. So this is something that's been happening a lot with live stream gaming. Like, I don't know if you guys watch Twitch at all. But the biggest Twitch streamer, Ninja, I'm sure you've at least heard of him.
Yeah.
He signed a deal maybe a year ago to move to Mixer, a competing live streaming platform.
I remember that, even though I don't do Twitch at all, but I remember that being big news.
Because it was like millions of dollars, right?
Yeah, no, he was rolling in it after that. But then that spawned every Twitch itself, Mixer signing more people exclusively, Twitch signing people exclusively, YouTube Gaming signing people exclusively. So basically, they all run their operation the same. It's just they no longer have the choice of where it's being distributed. They've signed a deal to exclusively stream on whatever platform. Very similar thing happening here.
Interesting.
So, similarly to that, we've got another show being moved to a different platform. This one I think is a little bit different, though. This is John Krasinski's Some Good News, which was a YouTube channel he started at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's now moving exclusively to CBS All Access. There's a lot of other details in there, but first I'll just ask you guys, have you been watching his show, or are you at least familiar with it?
I see the clips of it, like the viral ones. I think he did like prom for the class of 2020, Jeremy, you and me are huge Office fans, but like, I'm not gonna watch this, and especially if it's going to CBS All Access, and we don't even know if he's the host. Like, what is going on with this show? I don't understand it. Who's gonna pay $5 to like? Because I guess they want people to then sign up for CBS All Access. They're hoping like a new wave of people, but who's gonna be like, I love this show so much, I'll pay the $5 a month for it?
I've never heard of it. CBS All Access, it sounds like fake to me. Every time I hear about it, I'm like, what's really even on CBS All Access? Apparently the show is now. No. I don't think this is going to be a thing that's going to bring me over to the CBS All Access. Yeah, no way. It does, from what I've seen about it, though, and what you guys have talked about, it does sound like an interesting show. I just wish that it would...
It is neat that he does it. Like, it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
But I think it's geared more towards, like, I don't know, a younger base or just a happier audience. People who are already happy.
Yeah. It's not me.
It's not us.
Yeah.
So a few of the details. So Some Good News. John Krasinski starts it as a news show to highlight good stuff that's happening. Started, obviously, at the beginning of the pandemic when everything was just bad news over and over again. Admirable idea. I think there's something to be said about someone as big as John Krasinski just being bored and then deciding to make a YouTube channel, and then 2 months later it's got 2.5 million subscribers and 70 million views, and it's
so maybe people will move over to CBS All Access.
We could be wrong. How much is he getting paid for this? Do they have like the similar thing Joe Rogan? They're going to pay him $100 million for the
Again, the details are a little bit different, and I didn't find too many numbers. So, as Ben kind of mentioned, John Krasinski is no longer hosting it. So he's moving to an executive producer role, which I imagine means he's just going to cash the checks that they send
Which
to him.
Sounds amazing.
So,
like, shout out to him.
So he is what got them, like, CBS All Access interested. They're like, wow, John Krasinski has this really good YouTube show.
It's a one-man show, one-man
Let's
band.
bring him over and get the exclusive rights. Oh, but he's not coming.
That would be like the Joe Rogan podcast going to Spotify, and then he's no longer the host.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
Shop host every episode.
Maybe it is going to be like a different host each episode, and they're trying to do that.
Why would you switch that if that's the thing that got
But
you?
like that's because if you're watching the show, you probably started it because you like John Krasinski, right?
Yeah, you're not just a fan of like the structure of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
This is really riveting stuff here.
I think John Krasinski is 99% of the value of this show. That's why people watched it. That's why he was able to pull out... I mean, he got the original cast of Hamilton. He did an Office reunion. That's just John Krasinski making phone calls, asking for favors with his friends. When it turns into a network-produced thing, it's one that's no longer hosted by John Krasinski.
They are looking for hosts. I have three guys that might do a pretty good job. CBS All Access.
Some more info on CBS All Access. You may be thinking to yourself, oh, it's like one of those online things where I just like log in with my cable provider. You'd be incredibly wrong there. It's actually $5.99 a month, and you get ads. Or you can pay $10 a month for the ad-free.
That's bullshit.
I need to know the numbers. How many people are paying $10 a month for CBS All Access ad-free? I would love to see
I hate that so much because you already
have.
have CBS. It's just such a pain in the ass. And then... So they have their shows for CBS, and then they have their shows for CBS All Access? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
Compare that to the 2 billion monthly users on YouTube.
Yeah. I get, like, John Krasinski doing it, because then you got the money coming in. I'm assuming he'll make more money doing this, but... And once, like, you'd think, like, once things start clearing up, he won't necessarily have the time to do this, so maybe that's why he's an executive producer. This show just seems like it's gonna fall by the wayside as soon as like things come back up.
It's gonna maybe have like a season, and then they're just gonna cancel.
Yeah.
One quote from this article by The Verge: "The actor was hesitant to take a deal with any of the companies because he intended the show to remain free and accessible to as many people as possible." YouTube. "He started the series to bring a little good news to people, a welcome distraction from what was happening in the world." And then he's quoted as saying, "Could not be more excited and proud to be partnering with CBS Viacom to be able to bring some good news to so many more people."
That's not true.
They waived their check. That checkbook that they waved at him was probably that's what changed his mind. I'm assuming it's a good amount of money. If it started out with him saying that he wanted to give it to people for free and give a little good news, and then he decides
even more people
can now pay $5.99 a month to hear my good news. Like, no, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a John Krasinski fan. He seems like a good dude, but I can't look at this and not think that it's just a pure cash grab.
Yeah.
Do you blame him though? I would do.
No, I would do it too.
I don't
I'm just saying
really
it kind of
care,
sucks that it
but-
started off as some good news and then it's like, here's some bad news, and that we're gonna coat in good news.
When he's on record as saying he wanted it to be free and he just wanted to brighten people's day in an uncertain time, and then 2 months later he's like, "But then I got paid."
When
Now
does
you
it?
got to ruin people's day by making them download CBS All Access.
So when does it move there?
I don't actually know the date. I think he was done, like the show was technically done after his most recent episode. He was only going to do 8 or whatever. But then this came out, so I don't know when they plan on kind of restarting it. But I also probably won't hear about it, and I definitely won't watch it when it happens.
I'm glad we brought it up.
I just think it's interesting. Something we will watch, and we talked about it last week, but under the lens of a potential theatrical release for Tenet, and what would happen if it did or didn't release. Today we're going to talk just kind of about the movie itself, since there was a new trailer. Did you guys know it premiered in Fortnite?
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw on Twitter everyone was talking about that.
Very weird. I didn't think that the Chris Nolan and Fortnite audiences intersected that well, but I mean, whatever. But yeah, new trailer just came out on Thursday. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was Thursday.
And I mean, I already know that I'm going to need to watch this movie 6 or 7 times.
No, yeah, I watched the trailer just twice, and I think I was more confused after I watched it the second time. This feels like a movie. I think I'll hopefully understand it by the 6th or 7th time, and then I'll watch it probably like 10 more times after, assuming it's awesome. Like,
it's going to be awesome. There's no way it's not going to be. When has this guy ever made a bad movie in the past 10 years? We're going to get to it later with our review. Obviously, we're doing Inception today. But after watching Inception and then watching this trailer, it seems like it's Inception with time travel, which might be the greatest combination I've ever heard.
I'm ready to risk it all and go to a movie theater and watch this movie.
I might be too. Like, I am so excited for this movie. Like I said, after watching Inception, it got me more amped. And then rewatching the trailer, I don't know, dude, it looks awesome. And it's going to, like you said, I'm not going to understand anything that's happening. I'm going to have to watch it 6 times.
And I also don't know where I didn't know this, that Robert Pattinson was in the movie. I just knew John David Washington was in the movie.
He hadn't been in any of the trailers or anything that they had shown.
He was in the
yet.
first trailer.
He was?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I missed that. But, like, I feel like every time they list, like, who's in the movie...
I just see John David Washington.
He's too low on, like, the thing or something. Maybe I just, like, gloss over his name. But, yeah, I saw a lot of Robert Pattinson in this trailer, and I was pretty amped about that.
British Robert Pattinson, too.
Oh, yeah. The true Robert Pattinson. Yeah. Real form Robert Pattinson.
So, Bob, you mentioned it appears to be Inception mixed with time travel. I will say that in the description of the trailer on YouTube, there is 2 sentences, 4 words total. Not time travel, inversion.
So time travel.
I don't know what inversion means at all.
Do you know what Inception means?
Now I do.
But, like, it's just a made-up word. It's a Chris Nolan made-up word.
Yeah, and I hope it becomes a part of my vocabulary as I grow older.
As you start to travel through time.
Yeah. This is wild. It just looks so weird. Like when they're shooting the gun in the trailer and it's actually he's catching the bullet. I can't comprehend. It's going to take me years before I understand this movie.
They walk into a room and they see bullet holes everywhere, and Robert Pattinson's like, "What happened here?" And John David Washington's like, "It hasn't happened yet." And then it shows like a fight scene where it's like the bullets are coming back into the gun. I mean, obviously I don't really understand the premise. I probably won't until seeing this movie several times, but I can just imagine how painful it was. The pre-production, the actual like on set, like Chris Nolan's mind must work
They're probably like, what?
How does
Wait,
he come
what?
up with this shit? Like, seriously, every movie that he comes up with is so crazy.
They're
like,
probably like, wait, what? What? Explain this to me again. And he's like, just shut the fuck up.
He's like, guys, it's inversion.
He just keeps saying inversion.
I imagine he's on set. Everyone else compared to him is an absolute idiot. And he's holding the camera. He's holding the microphone. He has to do everyone's job for them because he can't even, in words, explain to the people what their jobs need to be on this shoot, is my thought.
I wonder if the actors even... They probably still don't understand what the movie is.
Can you imagine filming it, especially like if they film things like out of order, like they do in most movies?
Yeah.
Like they have no fucking clue what's going on. Like I don't even know what we're doing today. Right?
You could probably interview Robert Pattinson. He's like, I couldn't even begin to tell you what this movie's about.
I can't wait to watch his interviews about this movie.
You know what I like the most though is like it's too like John David Washington's like a newer movie star, I guess, and Robert Pattinson is like finally becoming like his own man. You know what I mean? I think he's shedding the Twilight like stigma about him, and I love the casting. I really do. I'm pretty excited for that. Two like new faces in a big movie blockbuster will be pretty.
Yeah, instead of just recycling like old characters, even though Michael Caine.
I was gonna say
Michael Caine's in every Chris Nolan
he has
movie.
to be.
You've got the warm hug of Michael Caine being in a Chris Nolan movie just to.
Is that
tie
like
you
his
back
father
down.
or something? Like, why is he in every single movie?
He signed a contract where every movie Chris Nolan does, he has to be in it.
So I think we can all easily say that we're excited for this movie. I know we talked last week about the potential for it coming to theaters. This trailer ends with a very aggressive statement. It says, coming to theaters. The trailer does not list a date. However, in the description of the video on YouTube, it does still say, coming out July 17th, 2020.
That's too close. I don't know. Wherever it is, we'll see it.
We talked about it last week, obviously, but I don't know. It's just going to be weird. I hope it does really well, and worst case scenario, I think I will see this at the drive-in if it does come out. Like, I probably won't go to the movie theater and watch it, but I think I would spend the money and go see it at the drive-in.
I'll risk it all. I want to see this. I don't care.
So with that, a movie that we're definitely going to see, let's move on into a movie that we can barely comprehend after several viewings. Of course, I'm talking about Inception. Inception was released on July 16th, 2010. We are fast approaching the 10-year mark, and if Tenet does come out on July 16th, it'll basically be the 10-year anniversary. Written and directed by Christopher Nolan, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ellen Page, Tom Hardy, Ken Watanabe, Cillian Murphy, all-star cast. It made $830 million on a $160 million budget. Just to give you an idea of the potential numbers we'd be looking at for a Tenet release. Obviously, it's a movie we've all seen before. It's 10 years old. Again, not worried about spoilers. But how many times would you guys say you have seen it, and how recently was the last time you watched it?
That's hard, because I didn't see it in theaters. I remember I bought it on DVD, and I watched it probably maybe 3 or 4 times. And then I would periodically watch it, I don't know, every once in a while, maybe once every 2 years. But I don't think I'd seen this movie in at least 3 or 4 years. And when I watched it, I actually was surprised how many things I didn't remember. So it was nice. It was fresh, because I kind of beat it too many times and watched it a little too often that it didn't give me the same feeling. But I got that back this time when I watched it.
Yeah, I remember I did see it in theaters, and the first time you watch it, you're just kind of so amazed with what just happened. You obviously have no idea what happened, but then you're I know I'm going to watch this movie at least 5 times. I think for me, the third time I watched it is when I finally started to understand it. I think, though, I think I've seen it 10 times. Like you, Bob, I got the DVD as well. I think I've seen it at least 10 times in my life. And this time, hadn't seen it in probably 2 years. And you remember the plot, obviously, and everything that's going on, but you just every time you watch it, there's another layer that you didn't catch the first time. And it was another fascinating watch for me. I loved it.
Yeah, I would say I'm probably somewhere in that ballpark as well, somewhere around 10 times in my lifetime I've seen it. But it has been at least a year, if not 2, since I'd most recently seen it.
I got a question for you guys, actually. Just because I was thinking about it, just before we really get into the movie, where would you rank this? Is this a top 5? Top
for
10?
Our preference?
Yeah, your favorite movies. Top 25, top 30? Where would you rank this for? I was thinking about that when I was watching it, because I think it's one of my all-time favorites, but I don't know where I would rank it.
So for me, it's definitely my second favorite Christopher Nolan movie after The Dark Knight.
Okay.
But I think it probably hovers around my 10th favorite movie.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I think it's, on any given day, it can be anywhere from 12 to 8, I think.
Yeah, because it's too convoluted, I think, to make like the top 5. Like it's too not gimmicky, but it's just such a crazy new idea. But overall, like it's a great movie. Like just the movie itself, and Leonardo DiCaprio is probably my favorite actor, and he's great in this movie. And
Tom Hardy and Tom Hardy are my two favorites. Yeah. So I love.
And those two together are awesome. Tom Hardy, like I forgot how like witty and like the
I forgot
jabs he takes at Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like I thought he was super funny in this.
Yeah, I don't know that it could. I would say it cracks my top 10. It's not too far off. Maybe top 15 is where I'd put it. If I'm talking like objectively, what I think some of the most well executed movies are on like a technical level, it's probably ranked higher than that. But if I'm just talking like my personal favorites, then
like to watch, yeah,
I'd give it like a top 15, maybe not quite top 10. But Ben, you kind of answered this already, but I guess I'll ask Bob, how many times do you think it took you until you felt like you had a firm grasp on the story, or do you feel like you don't still have one?
This time watching it, I think was the first time I watched all the way through where I felt like I knew everything that was going on. Obviously, there's things when you look back, you're like, maybe that was a dream, maybe it wasn't. In particular, that entire chase scene in Mumbai, I think sometimes that plays like it could have actually been a dream.
Yeah.
But I feel like, no, and like obviously the ending, you are supposed, it's like up for interpretation whether he's dreaming or not still. But I don't know. I think watching it through this time actually was the best I understood it, and I felt like I knew. There was really no moments of confusion this time while I was watching it. My feelings on what was a dream and what wasn't a dream were pretty solidified this time. Whether they're right or wrong, I don't know.
No, yeah, for me, you talked about it, like, about the ending. I just think, I love that he left it up for interpretation. I think that's, like, the coolest part of this movie. Like, if that just totally stops, you're kind of, like, almost annoyed. You're like, oh, wait, I guess...
Have you heard the theory about that gives away that it is real?
Why is that?
Apparently, Christopher Nolan told Michael Caine that every time he's on screen, every time Michael Caine is in a scene, that it's reality. It's
that's what it is?
I've heard that as well.
I don't know if that's true, but that's like something that's, it's been around the internet for a little bit.
Yeah, I guess that's... I don't know if I like him even saying that. I wish he would have just kept it to himself.
I don't think he's ever confirmed it. I think that's just something that's the theory.
So, on that note, a question I was going to ask, but I'll just give it to you now. Do you, just generally speaking, not necessarily for this movie in particular, do you like it when a director, creator leaves things open to interpretation, or do you like when they have an answer for everything? For example, Christopher Nolan, pretty committed to just leaving this open to interpretation, whereas someone like Rian Johnson, I know, he has an answer for everything. It might not be explicit in the movie, but if you watch interviews with him, if you ask him a question, he has an answer to everything, and he's willing to share it.
I just think when I was younger watching movies, you get frustrated that you don't really know. But I think now it's kind of cooler because it leads to more like discussion. Like I get into argument like with my brother. Like just it makes you talk about the movie more. I think it's smarter when directors do that.
If it's a good movie and they can pull it off, I think it's amazing. Because it is a little annoying where it happens. Like you said, you talk about Rian Johnson, but
if it's not a good movie, just answer the question.
You know where it happens the most is like superhero movies. I feel like they're always like there's an Easter egg or something.
And this kind of plays as a superhero movie. Obviously, they're not superheroes.
Yeah, but there's always an answer for something, and there's always like an Easter egg explaining something, and like things are always connected. And I like that it's up for interpretation, and you don't really know. And it's cool that I didn't even realize until we started watching it that it's 10 years old at this point.
Yeah,
like, it's kind of crazy. Like. And it's 10 years later, and you still really don't know. It's still up for interpretation. And if you've never seen Inception, it's like it's still just as good as it was back then. I think this movie holds up really well in that sense.
I think that's why like we're getting so excited for Tenet because you know it's going to be a movie you're going to have to watch 4 or 5 times, and you're not even going to understand it at that point.
Yeah, I think there's room for both. I didn't expect you to firmly land on one side or the other. I think. It depends on the movie. It depends on the intention of the director and everything like that.
What do you think about the special effects? Because
they really hold up, I think.
Yeah.
The fight scenes where they're fighting in zero gravity, I thought it looked like really well done.
Yeah. The only thing in particular, when him and what's her name, Juno are sitting in the they're sitting in the market and everything blows up. I remember when I first saw that, I thought it was crazy, but that actually didn't look good.
No, yeah. That scene, though, is great, though. Just how, like, she's realizing she's in a dream. That's, like... Because people always knew you don't really remember how you get to the dream, but, like, no one ever said it. And, like, when you watch it in a movie, you're like, oh, my God. It just kind of blows your mind,
I think that the scene you're talking about, Bob, and I don't know if that's a Netflix thing. I mean, it might look better if we were watching it on a projector in IMAX today. We might think it held up better. But the one thing that sticks out like a sore thumb, not just in this movie, but in every movie that does it, but particularly in this movie, because I agree for the most part everything holds up. Anytime you do like a messing with gravity thing where a wall and the floor have a 90-degree angle and your characters walk from one to the
that
other.
was brutal.
It's never looked good in any movie that's ever tried to do it, this one included. Can we please just never do that again?
No, and I love that. I loved when you see the town fly over. That part's sweet, but yeah, the when him and Juno walk over there.
when that was flipping, when the street was flipping and folding over, that I thought looked really good still.
Yeah.
Right. But like the 90-degree walk and then the scene in the mark, it was basically that whole scene is really where they pushed like the special effects on this movie, and
yeah, they
but
really
it's 10
showed.
years old.
Yeah,
I think it looks fine.
yeah. If they did it again, like if you made this movie now, I don't know how many changes you can make to make it look.
I'd say just that scene where she's realized she's doing that, because all that stuff happens in the same
do that,
scene.
yeah. Isn't it? I love her name, Ellen Pompeo.
Ellen Page.
Who am I thinking of?
I don't know.
Okay, Juno. No, but I love how her character is just designed to be you. You're like, wait, what? Yeah. What's going on? How does this work? How does that work? And you
She
just
only
follow
asks
her along.
questions the entire movie.
I think every line of dialogue she has is a question.
Do you know whose dialogue annoys me the most in this movie? Probably Saito, because I feel like he has a lot of times where he's like, he has a lot of moments where he's explaining what's happening in the movie, or he's explaining like Inception or something, and his accent is so thick.
Yeah,
that's part of the reason the movie's so goddamn confusing, because he's explaining like major like parts of the story, and you can't understand.
You bringing him up makes me think of, what do you think is the biggest like nitpick? Is it how can he make one call? How can he make one call to make Leo a free man? Or is
that's a good thing that it might be a dream, because how the fuck does he make one call and his murder charges are dropped?
I don't get that. And my other thing, I get he's like the Jeff Bezos of this world, but I don't understand how he could do that. And my other big thing is, you know how the kick wakes you up, or you need that to be simultaneously? How is a car rolling down like the side of a hill, right?
Not wake them up.
Yeah, when they get in that car accident. Those are the two like biggest things besides the movie itself, but.
So, I don't know that I'd call them nitpicks, but there's still a few questions that, I don't know if I answered my question earlier about how many times it took me to understand it. I don't know the number, but I kind of like Bob this time, I felt like I had a pretty solid understanding. But notwithstanding a few questions that remain, and one of them has to do with the kick. In particular, how do you get both into and out of limbo? Because I think it's a little ambiguous. Because
when you die in limbo, though, that's when you come back to your life. Why didn't you do that right away?
Kill yourself. Yeah.
I know there's
going into limbo. What is it? It seemed to me like that was the 5th level or the 4th level. I don't know.
The best explanation I can come up with is that limbo is one layer deeper than you're quote unquote allowed to go. So they had this serum that allowed them to go 3 layers deep, and if they went 1 layer deeper, that was limbo. But maybe if you had a different serum that only let you go 1 layer deep, then if you went a layer deeper there, that brings you to limbo.
Limbo I don't know is so confusing to me true. Because just like how he just had to like kill himself to get out of it. I don't understand why you wouldn't just do that right away.
Yeah, why did
I get why Leo and Maul didn't, because like they were
living in it.
Yeah, they loved it, but
why did Saito not just?
Saito dies in in all the layers of the dream, so he gets sent to limbo for 190. He looks like he's 400 years old.
Yeah. He's so old.
So, but yeah, if you can just kill yourself in limbo, and you can also do anything you want in limbo, seems like it'd be pretty easy to kill yourself.
Yeah. I get the point where at one point you start to not realize like whether you're in limbo or if that's real life. But
that would be my first priority.
You would know it early on. Like I'd probably just be like, I'd do a couple cool things and then kill myself.
He was like waiting for Leo though.
Yeah.
Saito was.
That's the part where I'm still confused, is like Leo goes to limbo and he's like confused why he's there almost. Right? Is that
yeah?
So
he knows he has to.
My other big question, which also has to do with limbo, is that so they're all in limbo, or a bunch of them are, to go find Fisher. Ellen Page and Leo go down there and they find Maul down there. Fisher and Ellen Page leave. They kick back up to the surface or whatever. Leo stays to find Saito. But then in the scene where Leo finds Saito 190 years later, he washes up on the shore again, which for the rest of the movie has been how you enter limbo. When you enter limbo, you wash up on the beach. But he was, I thought, already in limbo, and then the next time they show him, he's entering limbo again.
That's why I didn't know if it was the 4th or 5th level. I was so confused by that. So I guess when I said I understood it 3 times in, I lied.
Yeah.
It's tripping me out right now.
Yeah, now I feel the same way.
These are the only, like, I think the limbo stuff gets a little ambiguous or confusing. I feel like for the rest of the layers, for the rest of the time, I have a pretty solid understanding. I also had heard the Michael Caine theory that anytime he's on screen, it's real. Have you guys ever paid attention to his wedding ring before?
I've heard the wedding ring theory as well.
Give me this theory, because I don't know.
That's something that I focused on this time.
Every time, I looked at it too. Every time his wedding ring is off.
It's reality?
It's reality. Because Ma's dead.
Yeah.
And it's pretty, if you watch it and you look for it, it's pretty explicit. The scenes that you think are dream scenes, he's wearing a ring.
Yeah.
And then the scenes where you think it's reality, he's not wearing it.
Oh, that's super. Yeah, because
he's not
wearing it at the end.
Now I gotta go watch it again just to watch it. Oh, he's not wearing it at the end? Oh, okay.
So that's 2 things that also have never been
point to it. Yeah.
proven, that like Michael Caine and the wedding ring, but it also they both happen at the end.
Yeah.
So I think the end is he's in reality.
A little less ambiguous than okay. I guess I always just assume that too, because you almost want him to be back with his kids. You don't want him to be.
You want the
it's a sadder ending if he's obviously still in a dream. But when I rewatched it, that my favorite scene always changes, I think, when I watch this movie. But this time it was like Maul's suicide scene. Like how that scene is so gripping, and it's like so sad. And like when Leo sees her jump, like I feel like she actually jumped. It was so crazy.
And the way that like she
sets him up to just kill himself too.
She was declared sane by 3 psychiatrists. Yeah. And she wrote down those letters and like basically did set him up. Like you're done.
I know.
Either kill yourself too, or
find an Asian man who can make one call to.
Yeah.
I just love that whole plot line and how they don't give it to you straight. They layer it throughout the movie.
Yeah.
It starts with you find out Leo's on the run because he's accused of killing his wife, and then one of my favorite exchanges is when he says to Ellen Page, "Thank you for what? For not asking if I did it." Yeah. And then he just walked away. I was like, that's pretty badass.
Yeah.
But
that felt like the writer, because did Chris Nolan write this? But he was probably like, "Oh, that's a good line."
That's a good line. I can't wait to watch Leo say that.
Yeah.
But then you have the first kind of explanation of them in limbo and how she had kind of lost touch with reality, and when she came back, she wasn't sure if she was actually back or not. And then finally you find out it's because Leo spun the top, and that's how he learned that Inception is true, because he tried to convince her that limbo wasn't real, but then it took over her mind in the real world. The quote-unquote real world, if we're assuming that is the real world.
I remember comprehending that the last time I watched it. I was like, oh my god, that's how he knows it's real. It took me so long to figure that out. Yeah. And once you know that, it's like it's almost more sad that he is the reason she's dead, but so he feels so guilty about that, and that's why she shows up and everything. But
so, like I said, talking about Tenet, I mean, Christopher Nolan his mind must work just in a different way.
Yeah. The fact that he was able to, write and direct this and make it come out the way it did is just like, it blows my mind, dude. I don't know how one human being could come up with this.
And I think he started writing it in like 2000, and it took him like 10 years to get this movie made. Think about how bad the graphics would have been in 2000. Like, this movie could have been so shitty if it was made 10 years earlier.
It just gets me excited for Tenet, though.
I'm so, just talking about it, and watching that movie, because I am excited to see a movie where I am going to be so confused. Because when you watch a really good movie, you're almost sad after it's done because you know what happened, and you never get to watch it first time again. But like when you watch a movie like Inception or Tenet, you get to think about it and watch it like 4 times. Like, and each watch is like a different movie. Yeah.
I really appreciate movies that reward rewatching it. I mean, I'm guilty of rewatching just stupid popcorn movies, MCU movies, things that aren't nearly as layered or deep as something like Inception. I'm not opposed to just rewatching a movie just because I like it, but anytime you can rewatch a movie and get something new from it, especially, I mean, like I said, I've watched this movie maybe 10 times, and I still feel like I'm getting something out of it with every subsequent viewing.
No, yeah, that's how I feel with like a lot of his. Obviously, his movies reward all of his movies are reward rewatching, like we already said. But I think the 3 movies that are in my top 10 that I love so much, and which is why he's one of my favorite directors, is Interstellar's up there. I think I like Interstellar even a little better than this movie, and The Dark Knight. And all those movies, The Dark Knight isn't as layered. You kind of know what happens at that and take it at face value. But Interstellar is one where you kind of have to like watch that multiple times too.
I still think even with The Dark Knight, though, like maybe the plot isn't as layered and convoluted, but there's still like themes that are kind of layered and subtle that you can kind of pull out from subsequent viewings. So yeah, I think we're officially a Christopher Nolan fan cast.
Yeah,
is that official now?
I believe so. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, maybe we'll just go watch this movie and sit 6 feet apart. We'll be the only 3 in the movie theater. Maybe
we'll just watch this movie every week and come back with our new thoughts on it.
The only thing I'm hoping for Tenet is cameo by Mark Wahlberg.
If Mark Wahlberg ever made an appearance in one of these movies.
What city does Tenet take place in? Because like Inception, they're in Paris for a good amount of it. Is there a chance Tenet's in Boston?
Or is Tenet like some futuristic world where it's not in...
I'm going to imagine that's 2099 Boston.
2099 Boston. And obviously Mark Wahlberg's alive, so...
Yeah.
Mayor of Boston, actually. Well, with all that being said, we very much appreciate you listening to this episode of the Big Movie Boys podcast. And remember, it's not time travel, it's inversion. We'll see you next time.